embrace that for today. I actually embrace that every day, and I think that's going to be part of what we'll talk about on our panel today, which is a lot about what Betty talked about in MasterCard. We have today's society filled with old brands, and we have a lot of new brands. And wait, is this old? So we have old brands here, or familiar brands, as you might want to talk about them, which is what might mean a familiar person can have. Thanks. And so that's a little bit what Haymond is going to talk about today. And I think as much as things change, they remain the same. So that's what we're going to talk a little bit about today is with this panel. I don't know which mic is on, but okay. So let me just introduce my panel. I'll start there, but I want to just say that it's exciting to be here at CES. This is the 50th anniversary of the Consumer Electronics Show. So when you talk about old, new, familiar, you can see how many different things are changing. It's my personal 20th anniversary of coming to the Consumer Electronics Show, and so that's personally exciting myself to see all of the changes and all of the things that have come about. But I think if you think about everything that you've seen throughout these days leading up to our digital money forum today, you can think about how important payments are. There's not anything that would move itself off of the floor in any of the halls or anything that you've seen or any of the exhibits if it wasn't for some kind of great, smart, and frictionless payment system. So let me begin by introducing my panel. First we have Sherri Haymond, who is MasterCard's group head of digital channels, and she's created and implemented MasterCard's framework for digital activity. Her group manages the digital partners that Betty spoke a little bit about. We're also excited to welcome Christina Mercando, whose vision of a company called Ringly, which I guess I have the wrong ring on today, but I'll be changing and I know exactly how to buy it now, is a connected device. It's a wearable in fashion, and it uses Bluetooth technology to connect your mobile phone to your cool and stylish ring, and that will alert you to notifications using vibrations and a series of lights. We also have Tom Poole, who's joining us. Tom is a Managing Vice President for Mobile Payments and for Capital One. His group leads investments in third-party payment solutions, and they launched the Capital One mobile wallet. And finally, we have Billingsley, who is CEO of Klarna, a payments company founded in Sweden in 2005. And Klarna has developed and popularized what we're going to learn more about, which is the buy now, pay later, specifically a frictionless payment system that will increase sales for merchants. Before we begin, I just want to talk a little bit about how I see the world and just to frame out our conversation here. So if you think about Hanna-Barbera and you think about in their infinite wisdom, they came up with something so brilliant, which is the episodes juxtaposed of the Flintstones and the Jetsons. So George Jetson and Fred Flintstone were pretty much the same guy. They had the same issues, the same set of challenges, but the tools and the platforms and the way they went about things are different. So I think that's how I'd like to frame things for our conversation today. And Sherri, take it away.
Hi, I'm Sherri Haymond. I work at MasterCard in our digital payments division. So, you know, as has been really obvious at CES and Betty's remarks this morning, this is a crazy time. A lot is changing. It's happening really quickly. More devices than ever before are becoming connected. By 2020, we think there will be 50 billion connected devices. Also by 2020, we think that between 20 and 30% of all transactions will in fact be digital. And so at MasterCard, we think this is a ginormous opportunity to and we're in a unique position to shape the way this actually happens and moves forward. And so over the past number of years, we've been focusing on preparing an infrastructure and building an ecosystem to really enable all of this to happen in a super secure way at scale in a way that's going to bring tremendous value to all players in the ecosystem, issuers, merchants, consumers. And so what we've done is start out by creating a way to make this transition to digital very safe, as I mentioned before, by creating this engine for what's called tokenization. Betty mentioned it earlier, and what we've ensured is that as we move to digital, we want every digital transaction to be at least as secure as the most secure plastic card transaction. And so if they all leverage chip technology, so the same EMV technology secured with cryptograms that's in a chip, we're making sure that all digital transactions are based on that. And so we actually standardized this. It was an opportunity for us to actually get together with our network competitors for a good cause to make sure that we did this in a way that would be scalable and backwards compatible. And then we launched this engine that Betty also alluded to earlier called our MasterCard Digital Enablement Service. It's a token engine that allows device manufacturers to ask an issuer to allow them to put the consumer's card at the consumer's request into a device. And so initially, it made sense to launch this with mobile phones. Everyone has one, and those players were very interested in getting involved. And so we launched, we launched initially with Apple, and then added Samsung and Google after. Although now is, to me, where it's getting super interesting and exciting, and it's what I've been focusing on for the past year, is figuring out ways to partner with different members of the ecosystem, issuers, enablers, device manufacturers, to really expand the universe of things that can be embedded with these secure credentials. And to do it in a way that's seamless and scalable, where we're simplifying the technological implementation, the operational side, and also the commercial framework. And so in October, we announced a program called Commerce for Every Device. Christina from Ringly was one of our first partners. And so this ring, that Christina's going to show you in a minute, starting later this year, in addition to it giving me notifications when my nanny or my husband text me when I'm in a meeting, I can see, depending on the color of the light, whether I need to check my phone. I will also be able to provision cards, just like I do into the more traditional wallets that now we all know and are starting to use, like Apple, Google, Samsung, or a Capital One, an issuer wallet. Those same credentials can be used to also power payments on, for example, a Ringly ring, or an article of clothing, or a key fob, or a fitness band, and the list goes on and on and on. This is really just the beginning, right? So, we announced yesterday a partnership with Coin, who has this amazing technology where they've miniaturized the chip that has both NFC and Bluetooth that enables all of this to happen. They figured out a way how to make it really small and pretty inexpensive. And they're connecting to our system so that they can enable all kinds of wearables and other device manufacturers to really easily include payments as a functionality. And again, this is sort of just the beginning, because we'll be partnering with lots of other enablers. And we think that this is also kind of a jumping off point. So to us, this was low-hanging fruit. It was obvious. Consumers, we think, are really liking this. They like the choice. They like to pay with what's accessible. But it really then will lead to our ability to really accelerate secure embedded commerce experiences, contextual commerce experiences. For example, the one that we showed you yesterday, or 2 days ago, with Samsung in the fridge that Betty spoke about also earlier. And many more things. Put credentials into a car key fob, have those credentials also accessible by a car, build out commerce experiences around that with parking and order ahead and all of that stuff. And again, as Betty mentioned, it's all contextual, right? So it's not going to be that you're going to just pay with one thing. At least we don't think so. We think that our job is to enable a whole universe of things that people can pay with, whatever's accessible for them, whatever's appropriate in the context that they're in.
Okay, so let's Ringley.
Yeah, so I'm Christina, the founder of Rudin. I'll give you a little background on the company. So we started shipping our first product in January of this year. It's a collection of rings. They come in 8 different styles, and they connect to your phone through Bluetooth. And through the Ringley app, you can set up what notifications you want. So it's not about getting everything. It's about being able to filter down to the most important things for you. And we're integrated with over 80 different apps now, so you can choose anything from your, Slack direct messages to when your Uber car is arriving, or it can let you know 15 minutes before your next meeting is coming up. And as we look at the future of these connected devices, part of Ringley's mission, and the reason I started this company, is I truly believe that our clothing are becoming our devices. And in the future, everyone here is going to be shopping for electronics the way that today they shop for clothing. So you're not going to only want to buy the piece that fits your personal style, but you'll also want to buy the functionality that fits your lifestyle. And as we look at these devices, one of the missions for us is how do we make our lives more convenient, and how do we make women's lives particularly just a little bit better. And Haymond is the next phase for us. So here's the ring right now. You can see it here. And I'll back up here on the screen. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, there you go. So similar to some of the other smartwatches out there, you can come into your cards app, your payment settings. You can click manage your cards. This is where you can see all the cards connected. You can select which one you want your ring to work with, and you can activate and deactivate cards. So if you lose your ring or if you misplace it, you can come in and just deactivate it, and those people can't use it. And then once you have your card set up, you just any terminal where you can tap to pay, you just walk up to it and tap, and the transaction is complete. And we have one of our working demos at the MasterCard booth, so if you're interested in seeing it in person, you can come down there and check it out. And that's kind of our mission. And then beyond payments, it's going to be about access. So being able to, eliminate both your wallet and your keys and your Metro cards, and how can we start to make our lives easier through clothing?
Pretty sure that's my size.
You might want to walk away with it.
I don't walk away with it, but because I need to pay for it. But,
yeah. The other really cute thing is the ring box that it comes in is the charger box, so you just pop them back in here and charge it. Yeah.
That's really cool. So I think what's so interesting here is, again, as I said, the familiar brands and partnering with some of these new brands. So tell me, you can talk a little bit about that from Capital One standpoint.
Sure. So my name's Tom Poole. I lead mobile payments at Capital One, and I remember, I see a lot of mobile payments opportunities in the course of what I do, and we pursue many of them. But I have to say, when we started to partner with MasterCard on this was sort of
Turn up the mic.
this just. Can you hear me, Mike?
You get the handheld.
You want to touch the podium?
Yeah.
Wow. Feel honored. Oh, now it's on. Oh, there it goes. Okay. So when we first sat down with MasterCard and we were looking at this, I think we all realized. It's like a trick. Is it better? No. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it better? No. Yes. It's about being unclear. So to start again. When we first sat down with MasterCard to look at this, I think we all immediately realized that this was an idea that was time to come, that the form factor for payments did not necessarily need to be limited to plastic cards. And when you see something like this that instantly has consumer appeal, and we believe manufacturer appeal, you really want to get behind it. And so our question, though, was ultimately this only works if it's a great experience for consumers. So from Capital One's perspective, what we set out to do in our partnership with MasterCard on payment things is figure out, okay, what does the bank experience need to look like to complement this? We thought there was a couple things enabled by what Sherri talked about, which is tokenization. One is real-time notifications of every transaction tell you what device made the payment, right? As a consumer, I've got to know if my ring was discharged, or if my purse was discharged, or if I've enabled a suite of devices for payments, I need to know which one and how much for. Right? So that's got to be instant information. Second, I've got to have the ability to turn it off at a moment's notice if I want to. And we enable that. Tokenization basically lays the groundwork for that. Because what you're basically doing is you don't have to communicate with your device. You're basically telling your bank, whoever that bank may be, that you no longer want to recognize that particular token. And so they no longer authorize transactions to connect that to your master account or That's the benefit that tokenization creates. So we think with that customer experience coupled with a very easy verification and setup where consumers are choosing to do this and they're not falling into it or buying a live device, they're choosing to provision a specific card account or a specific debit account to that device. We think we get this fantastic customer experience that really leaves you with the kind of control you want and expect, and arguably is better than you might have today, but enables you to flexibly pay through any device. And so as we work with MasterCard, our ambition, and certainly my ambition, is that we make this open platform that is really turnkey for anybody who wants to manufacture and put payments capabilities in their devices. It's incredibly easy and not a set of laborious one-off contracts with hundreds of banks. That's really made turnkey, partly through programs like MasterCard's Express program, but also making it easy with the banks, being very clear about what you need to do, the data flows, the transfers, everything just needs to be turnkey so that if I aspire to quit my job at Capital One and form a startup to build payments hardware, I can do it. Right? And it should be really, just the rules should be written, and that to me is the definition of a great platform business, when we're able to construct that model and get away from, again, laborious one-off contracts with every single major bank, which if you've ever negotiated with banks, you have some sense of just how tough that can be and how they all have different perspectives and how long it can take. And so I think what we're moving to is a world where this just becomes so radically easy to enable payments functionality in any device you're choosing, and we get to the world that you very much, it's up to you how you want to pay with anything. Right? And I think that opening that up and betting on any device, I'm a fan for Billingsley personally, but betting on any device, the beauty is you don't have to. The point is to open up their platform and let the ecosystem develop consumer options and alternatives and add payments functionality on devices and see where it goes. Right? So that's very much the ambition we have here, and we're huge fans of it at Capital One. We're actually huge fans of creating a standard that we want other banks to emulate, because candidly, this thing only, banking is such a glacial pace of change in the industry, and there's so many players that you really need to create standards for things like this to get off the ground. You can't have single actors, and no matter the scale, there's just no bank big enough, certainly in the US, probably worldwide, to push something like this around. So it really requires a thoughtful collaboration across entities to make something like this work. But again, my instinct tells me, and all the things I see, this strikes me as having enormous potential, enormous consumer appeal, and again, enormous manufacturer appeal.
Great. So thanks, Tom. I don't know who's on and who's off now. So moving on to the Tom's remarks, he spoke a little bit about the global aspect and the partnership here, and I think that's probably a perfect segue for Brian to tell us a little bit about Klarna, which was founded in Sweden.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Brian Billingsley. I'm the CEO of North America for Klarna. And as I was milling around in the back, someone told me, hey, I have a hard time getting my head around really what Klarna does and what, who you guys are. So hopefully in a few minutes I can really help kind of gel the thoughts around who Klarna is and what we do. So firstly, I want to clearly describe what problem are we solving. And I was inspired by the quote that the previous speaker left us with about think in years and ship in days. I think Klarna really emulates that vision, but something else that we would add to that is we want to solve problems that both merchants and consumers have today. And as I walk around the halls of CES, there's so much awesome technology, and I think how many months or years will it take for that to really start impacting our world. And what I love about Klarna is the things we do every day impact merchants' business today. They impacted their business over the last holiday season, and so that's really exciting to me. So the tangible problem for merchants that happen every day is the friction in the checkout experience keeps a huge percentage of consumers from actually finishing the transaction. So, if you saw, and it's even getting worse as more of the web volume is going to mobile. So you saw Walmart publicly said that over 50% of their transactions were on mobile on Black Friday. Most of our merchants are seeing 50, 60, 70% of their overall web traffic coming in on a mobile device. But they're seeing their checkout conversion flatline or even start to decrease. And when you talk to the VP of e-commerce or the head of mobile at many of these merchants, both big and small, they're really pulling their hair out because they're not finding a way to solve that problem. They're spending more money on SEO, AdWords, advertising, how do you get more people to the checkout, into the website. But once people hit that checkout page, most merchants just throw up their hands and say, we've done all we can. Hopefully, a decent percentage of people will actually consummate the transaction. And so for merchants, that's really where Klarna adds our value. We're here on a payments panel, but we're really more about payments. It's really about about the buying experience. How do you create a frictionless buying experience for the consumer and increase conversion and revenue for the merchant? So how do we do that? Firstly, we're really allergic to two things at Klarna. We're allergic to friction, or we're allergic to passwords. Anything that adds friction to the checkout experience. So if you're at a Klarna merchant and we've never seen you before, we'll typically ask only top of mind information. We start with your email and zip code. Typically two things that if you woke someone up, even after a night out in Vegas at 3 a.m., they can tell you what their email address is and what their zip code is. That's where we run our first set of algorithms and fraud checks. If we've never seen you before then, we ask for the information we would need for that merchant to ship you your product anyway. Your street name and number, and your email and your phone number, and that's it. And with that limited data, we'll run our own set of fraud and risk algorithms and say, do we need anything else from this consumer? And even in the US, 70% of the time we'll say, that's all we need, you can just hit buy. And so with that limited data, the consumer hits the buy button. A couple things happen. One, the consumer gets a notification that the stuff's on their way. They can still pay however they want. If they want to pay on a big city American Airlines MasterCard, where I love using that card for points. So I want to use that to actually pay. But if I've left my wallet upstairs, if I forget my password to log in, I can just check out. I know that product's on its way, and I don't have to pay for it yet, but I've bought it. It's the big distinction for us between buying and paying. We really separate the buying experience and the paying experience. What also happens for the merchants is as soon as that consumer hits the buy button, they have no liability on that transaction as long as they ship the way they're supposed to and actually send the product that the consumer's bought. Klarna takes all the chargeback and fraud risk for that transaction. And so what that allows us to do is these awesome payments innovators are creating standards, new ways of paying, cryptocurrencies, etc. We can start to integrate all those great things that all these amazing players are bringing to the table. But by us saying, you know what, we're going to split the buying and paying experience apart, we don't have to wait on anything to come to the table because we're going to take the full risk on that transaction and then work with these awesome partners as new technology comes to the table. On the consumer side, what do we do for consumers? One, we do give that frictionless buying experience where they can just hit the buy button, especially on mobile where you get to the checkout, all these beautiful apps and websites that allow you to easily search and find that product you want, but then you go to pay and you see these 40 fields, you have to pick the phone up with two hands, you start typing everything in, you can't remember the password to whichever wallet or payments solution you want to use. And so that's the majority of the reason why people abandon the checkout. And so we give that consumer essentially that one-touch payment experience on your mobile device. After the first transaction with Klarna, we turn the whole web into Amazon One Click where you just hit the buy button. But what we also do, because in Europe we are a bank, and we also like to we have the right credit products for the right show the consumer the right credit products at the right time. So when the consumer is coming through the checkout, if they have a $9 pair of socks in the checkout, the consumer thinks very differently about that transaction than if they have a $900 TV in the basket. And so for a $9 pair of socks, just let them check out, hit the buy button, they're done. They can put it on their credit card they have on file, they can pay with their bank account, they can pay however they want, up to 14 days later after the product ships. But if it's a $900 TV, the consumer thinks very differently. How am I going to pay for it? Do I want to put it on a credit card? Is there financing options? And because we have that consumer data, we've basically done pre-screens and say, hey, consumer, you're already pre-approved to break that TV up into 10 payments of $90 or whatever that program is. So it really allows us to give consumers choice, whether it's a $9 transaction or a $900 transaction, give them the flexibility, how do you want to pay for this? And then that ultimately drives more conversion and revenue for the merchant.
Okay, great. So unfortunately, due to not able to augment reality here, and no virtual reality here, we're just running out of time, and we have a lot to talk about. So all of these fabulous panelists will be available today to talk more about their products, more about what they're doing. I'm going to try to get us back on schedule here. So I think the most important thing that I get out of this panel, and I hope all of you get out of it, is really the collaborative nature of what's happening here. I think the way that we all work together is something important. We have a lot of familiar brands, as I mentioned before, new brands, new exciting things. So I'll leave you with, I'm just sitting here thinking we have something old, something new, something borrowed, and of course something blue. So thank you, panelists.